Alright, hello again, adventurers, and welcome to the first episode of a brand new series called Discovering New Dragons, or D&D. Your guide to finding new RPGs to fall in love with. For anyone that has been living under a rock recently, stuff's happening with D&D. I have made videos about it, how I am part of the minority that believes all of this has been blown entirely out of proportion. But I still believe in the idea that people should try other RPGs. Even if, again, I love D&D 5th edition. 1 D&D, which is going to be D&D 5.5, folks. It's not 6th edition. Understand this. Is probably going to be fine. And then when they do come out with a 6th edition, it's probably going to be great too. And all of them are going to be the best-selling RPGs on the market for as long as they're publishing books. That's how it works, folks. That being said, I love other RPG systems. I really, really do. And so this series is going to be me highlighting different RPG systems and different settings and the things like that to just kind of show people what some of the other things out there are. This is not me saying I'm boycotting anything. This is not me saying you're not allowed to play this system or you have to play this system. This is literally discovering new dragons, discovering new things. Also, I find it hilarious that the acronym for this is going to be D&D, and I literally thought up this entire series 10 minutes ago. As I was turning on my computer, I went, oh, wait a minute, that sounds really good. So, without any more ado, the first system we are going to look at is called the Cypher system. Some quick history about the Cypher system. Cypher system itself. Cypher system itself is published by Monty Cook Games. The system itself has been out for a while. One of the more popular versions of it, basically like a campaign setting for the Cypher system, is called Numenera. There's actually there is a video game called Numenera Tides of Something that some people can get introduced to the system through. It touts itself kind of as a spiritual successor to the Planescape Torment game, which is a really interesting game in the Planescape D&D setting. So the Cypher system in and of itself is a system neutral or a setting neutral system. And one of the unique things about the Cypher system that I haven't seen in other systems is, and I may end up doing an in-depth review of the Cypher system core book. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see that. But the third chapter of the Cypher system rulebook is called, or technically it's the fourth, but it says part 3, genres. And what it is it shows you not only how the system fits into those genres, but it gives you suggestions on how you might run it as a GM. Like it's the compared to other kind of setting agnostic systems, this one to me feels the most kind of complete. Whereas most other ones, if they don't have a default setting built into them, like a good example, Open Legend. Open Legend itself, if you just buy the Open Legend core book, the book itself is setting agnostic. It doesn't have an official setting, and therefore everything in the book makes sense. The system is very robust, but you kind of have to make up everything yourself. And so it doesn't feel super, super good to do it because yes, you have like the rules, but you have to come up with everything else. And it can be very, very overwhelming even for seasoned game masters. However, again, the Cypher setting, just the generic Cypher system core book specifically has this section where it's like, for the fantasy section, it talks about not only what foci would fit best in this and how to kind of rename the different types to fit in that setting so it feels a little bit more like a more traditional fantasy type game like Dungeons and Dragons. But it also will give you suggestions for some of the monsters that would make the most sense in this setting. And they do have, in this core book, it is one of the kind of combination core books where it is a player's handbook, dungeon master's guide, and a monster manual all in one. So it's another thing that's really, really nice to just get everything all at once. The setting, or the system itself, is one of my favorite systems because it is very, very customizable without being massively complex. I talk about complexity a lot, probably because when I got my start playing tabletop RPGs, it was during 4th edition, and I was constantly hounded, specifically by Pathfinder players, about how stupid and boring and made for babies 4th edition was, whereas Pathfinder was made for real gamers, and it was complex, and you could create much more interesting characters in Pathfinder. And I never understood that argument because I know Pathfinder, because I knew D&D 3rd edition pretty well. I didn't play it on the table, but I knew the system. It was in like half a dozen different games. And building characters is what I do for fun. I cannot tell you how many times I have started Baldur's Gate, both 1 and 2, Icewind Dale 1 and 2, even Torment, Tides of Numenera. I've done that, and Planescape Torment, like all those things. I just build characters in them, so I'm very familiar with the systems. And it never made sense to me because those systems are highly restrictive, and you have to understand the system extremely well to play a character you want to play. Whereas 4th edition, you could do anything you wanted, and it was really hard to make a characters unplayable. So when I talk about complex, something that has a decent amount of complexity, so where you can do a lot of customization, but it's not so needlessly complex, I tend to prefer games that give you a decent amount of character options while having most of those character options be as generic as possible. And for the rules governing all of those to be as simple as they need to be to allow you to do what you want to do. 3rd edition and Pathfinder 1st edition do not fall under that category because while, yes, they do have a lot of character options, they have tons of character options, especially Pathfinder 1st edition. The character options are so specific and so defined. Like, something I found really interesting, there is a card-based magic user in Pathfinder 1st edition. And I'm like, oh, cool! I might have finally found the character that makes me want to play in a Pathfinder game. And I can't remember what the character is called. Anyone that's really good with Pathfinder, put the name of the character class that uses cards for magic. Put it in the comments because it really is a cool idea. But as I read more into it, like, I wanted to create kind of a magical gambit style character that would attack by maybe attaching spells to cards and then throwing them, or finding a way to flavor it. And that's not what the class did. And the class itself was relatively poorly designed. And so it didn't work really well. And there's really only maybe 1 or 2 builds for the class that would allow you to play it and be able to do what you want, and neither of those builds were things that I was interested in. And in addition to that, Pathfinder has a rule for everything. And every rule is very, very specific, and it is a game for rules lawyers, because the better you know the rules, the easier it is to change reality, because you can find a rule that will let you do what you want to do, and then you will find another rule that will say it's impossible to do that, and you and the dungeon master just get to fight over which one is the rule that you're going to be using. Cypher system, on the other hand, Cypher system is remarkably open. This is the first game that doesn't use movement speed that I encountered. And I encountered Cypher system. It was one of the first non-D&D systems that I really started getting into. What I mean by that is your movement is defined by effectively 4... I want to see... I think it's under rules of the game. The movement... Anyway, the movement is set up into effectively... There we go. Range and speed. There we go. There are 4 different distances. You have immediate distance. Immediate distance is anyone that is close enough for you to effectively interact with them. If you roll initiative for combat, everything in combat is generally expected to be within immediate distance. The next one out is short distance. Anything greater than immediate distance but less than 50 feet. Long distance is between 50 and 100 feet. Very long is anything longer than 100 feet but less than 500 feet. Because anything over 500 feet, you just say the distance because there's no chance you're going to be dealing with that in a single round of combat or something. And that, it really exemplifies how the Cypher system works in general. Immediate distance just means that if you want to take an action in combat, anyone in immediate distance you can affect with that action. Short distances, again, it's not close enough that you could run over and punch them instantly. You're going to have to spend probably most of your turn getting to them. But they're not super far away. They're not beyond the realm of interacting with. And if you have some sort of ranged weapon, you can probably interact with them, or some sort of ranged ability, you can probably interact with someone at a short distance. Long distance, again, a little bit longer. You're going to need something designed to be used at long range. Maybe a rifle versus a handgun. Or maybe you're just kind of a spell sniper type character that's used to casting at long distances. 100 feet really isn't an extremely long distance when we're talking about marksmanship. But it's decent. It does take skill to hit a target from 100 feet away. We'll put it that way. And a lot of I am not an expert on marksmanship in general, or specifically, but my understanding is a lot of marksmanship stuff does not start you at 100 feet away from the target. Like, I believe there are much closer things that still have competitive aspects. So anyway, so yeah, I mean, to me, this kind of exemplifies how the Cypher system works. Because if I was running the exact same combat in DnD versus the Cypher system, in DnD, I'm going, okay, well, this character is 10 feet away, and this one is 5 feet away, and this one's, you know, base to base, and things like that, to use a completely non-DnD term. That's a wargaming term, folks. But you know, you'd be setting it up, and you have to deal with opportunity attacks and all those other things. Whereas this, it's like, well, you know, where are these? They're all within immediate distance. So if you want to interact with any of them, well, can I get them in a line to, you know, hit them with a large area attack? Sure. Or, you know what, they're in immediate distance, but they're on opposite sides of you. So hitting them both with the same thing would probably involve you getting hit as well. So really simple, very good for theater of the mind, stuff like that. And that's kind of how the Cypher system works. And it works very, very good for that. The second thing that makes the Cypher system unique is how you build your characters and how you describe your characters. To give you an example, my personal favorite character that I have run, and it's mostly because it is a character that I played for the longest. I played this particular character for like 3 or 4 years in the D&D Adventures League. The character's name is Aether. He has no last name on purpose. He is an assassin for hire. But if I was to explain the character, he is a wood elf shadow monk. Is the character himself, and he has the criminal background, specifically the assassin. So that's how you would describe a D&D 5th edition character, and he's also level, last time I played him, I think I got him up to level 17 or 18, so pretty high level character. That is my D&D character, and even that doesn't really give them everything about the character, but it gives you all the kind of mechanics and stuff like that, or most of it. You know, there's also feats and other things that I can talk about, but for a Cypher system character, your character is encapsulated by a single sentence. I am an adjective noun who verbs. That is how you build your character. Is, you know, Aether is an adjective noun who verbs. And each one of those word types is a different part of character creation. you have 3 different aspects of your character, your build, when you're building a Cypher system character. Generally, the first thing you pick is the second part, the second word that comes in the sentence, which is the noun, which is referred to as your type. Type is effectively the class of your character. And in the base Cypher system, there are 4 basic types that exist. The types are Warrior, Adept, Explorer, and Speaker. And each one kind of specializes in something different, but you would start by picking like Warrior. Warrior is going to be a little bit more physical. You can be a speed-based warrior or a strength-based warrior, but you know, if you're trying to relate it to D&D, your warriors are going to be, most of your martial classes are going to be warriors. Adepts are going to be kind of your blanket to the term for your spellcasters' magic style classes. And that can be anything from a wizard to a psionicist. Those are all going to be in there. Explorers are kind of a more unique thing where they can fit into a lot of different things, but they tend to be a little bit more speed focused, if I remember correctly. I'll look at it before I say the wrong thing. Explorer. So fantasy, they give ideas for different types of names. So like for the Explorer, you have Explorer, Adventurer, Delver, Mystery Seeker for the fantasy kind of fairy tale stuff. Or if you go science fiction, you might call them a Wanderer, Planetary Specialist, Xenobiologist. So they are a little bit more in the athletic, like Rangers, I guess, would probably be the closest thing you could come up to for just a pure explorer. Ranger would fit kind of well, where they are very knowledgeable about certain things, but they also have a physicality to them. And then the finer one is Speaker, and Speaker is going to be much closer to your persuasive characters, bards, anyone whose kind of purpose is built to influence people. Those are your speakers. So those are the 4 types that exist in the Cypher system. However, and again, if you guys are interested in this, I might do one of those character builder things. Again, comment down below if you want to see me build a Cypher system character, where I actually build a character and show you guys how all this stuff works. But when you choose your type, you choose normally like 3 or 4 abilities from a list of like a dozen, and there'll be, you know, different things like Enthrall, which is, before I say this, so while talking you grab and keep another's creature's attention even if the creature can't understand you. For as long as you do nothing but speak, you can't even move. The other creature takes no actions other than to defend itself, even over multiple rounds. If the creature is attacked, the effect ends action. So that's one of the abilities a speaker can take, is one of their things. So you have a list of about a dozen different things for your first tier, and as you gain levels, you can get more abilities and things like that. That being said, immediately after the chapter entitled Type, there is another chapter entitled Flavor, and this is where the Cypher system just gets me. There are, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think there are 5 flavors that they have in here. Yes, so there are 5 flavors that they have in here. What flavors are is, let's say you've decided that, well, you want to be a warrior, but nothing about the warrior is really, like the character you have in your mind, it doesn't fit into any one of these types. But the closest thing is you want to be a warrior, but you want to be kind of a, you know, you want to be kind of a fighter, but you want to be a little bit more like the Winter Soldier, where yes, they're a fighter and they're very, very good, but they also have this kind of other mechanical side that lets them do things they normally couldn't. You want to be kind of a hybrid. You want to be a cyborg style the thing. Well, flavors allow you to basically trade out some of those abilities that are built into the the starting class and trade them for other things. One of the flavors is the technology flavor. So if you want to be a more kind of technological warrior, or maybe you want to be an adept, but instead of being a magic user, you want to be to bring in another series that is massively underrated. Babylon 5 had a group of people called the Techno Mages, who, it was a science fiction setting, and these were effectively sci-fi wizards. But the way that they explained it is they were effectively cyborgs. They had all of this technology implanted in them in secret ways, like the actual technology itself is highly secretive, and only other techno mages know how to do it and stuff like that. And so, but from the outside, everything they do, everything they do just looks like magic. Because the technology is hidden in them so well, and it's done intentionally to make it look like they're casting magic, but it's all technologically based. It's all because they have nanites in them, and different, their staves have different things in them, and it's all computers and stuff like that, and they've augmented their bodies like that. So if you wanted to be a techno mage, you could take an adept and then put the technology flavor to really allow you to do something. The 5 flavors are stealth flavor, technology flavor, magic flavor, combat flavor, skills and knowledge flavor. The flavors themselves are just examples of flavor. They go, well, we're going to group together these things to give you an idea of this is what a stealth-focused character might want instead of some of these other things. And so by combining the flavors and the types, you can really create any kind of character you want. You want to be kind of like a battle mage, or maybe you want to be a blade singer. If you really want to go from DnD to Cypher, and you're like, I have this really awesome blade singer that I really, really like. But Blade Singers, first of all, Blade Singers is specifically copyrighted by the Forgotten Realms. Like it is something from the Forgotten Realms. The actual word Blade Singer, it's theirs. Along with the idea of the Blade Singer and all the lore and stuff built into it. That's a Forgotten Realms thing. And Wizards of the Coast has published books with the Blade Singer in it, so they own those aspects of the Blade Singer. It's like, I want to be a Blade Singer, but it's not like, a fighter mage where there's tons and tons of systems and stories where, wizards use swords and stuff like that. Like, that's not a big thing. Blade Singer is very, very specialized. Well, you could take you could take either a warrior or an explorer, and then just give them the magic flavor, and give them some aspects of magic, because it's not, all these flavors are not, okay, just replace all these skills with this. They give you a list of abilities, and they say any one of these abilities you can just switch with an ability that already exists there, which means you have to trade something out. That's where the balance comes in. And so, yeah, you just take your warrior, you add a magic flavor to it, and then everything else will be done with your descriptor and focus. And it works really well. I have yet to find a character that I couldn't create in the Cypher system as long as I was given access to flavors and things like that. Like, I can make just about any character you want in the Cypher system, and they will look really cool and be really interesting and be really fun to play. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's going to give you a lot of options, there's a ton of different what do they call them? They call them skills. Abilities. They just call them abilities. So there is pages and pages and pages of abilities. So let me see. So the ability chapter starts on page 95, and then it's a very long chapter, and then the next chapter is page 201. So there are 100 pages of abilities, and most of them take up about a paragraph-ish, and they're 2-column pages. So there are tons and tons of character options. None of them are massively complex. None of them require a PhD to understand. To give you an example of probably a relatively complicated power because it's on the last page. Wormhole is a power they have. It costs 6 intellect points. Talk about that later. You create a doorway through time and space. The shortcut manifests as a hole in reality large enough to accommodate you and a creature of your size or smaller. One side of the doorway appears anywhere within immediate range. The other side opens at a spot you choose anywhere within long range. Any character or object moving into one side exists from the other. The door remains open for 1 minute or until you use an action to close it, action to initiate. Even though I have not explained how the entire system works, anyone that has watched this video up to this point can understand how this works. The 6 intellect points we haven't talked about yet. So that's the only thing you don't understand, but we know what immediate distance is. We can figure out what action means. And it explains how it works without going into massive details. If you would look at, I mean, this is Dimension Door. If I open up Dimension Door in D&D Beyond, which I'm going to do right now just because I can. Come on, you can do it, computer. Dimension Door. So this is literally Dimension Door. That's how Dimension Door works. It's a really easy explanation. Dimension Door, 4th level, Conjuration. You teleport yourself, or actually no, it's not Dimension Door, but it's similar. I'm trying to think of the actual spell that this mimics, but and I can't. I think, is it Portal? In 4th edition, Dimension Door worked exactly like this, where it left the door open. Let's see. Duration instantaneous. Yeah. So anyway, so even just with Dimension Door, level 4th, casting time 1 action, range 500 feet, components verbal, duration instantaneous, school, conjuration, attack save none, damage effect, teleportation. You teleport yourself from current location to any other spot within range. You arrive at exactly the spot desired. It can be a place you can see, one you can visualize, or one you can describe by stating a distance and direction, such as 200 feet straight downward or upward to the northwest at a 45-degree angle, 300 feet. You can bring along objects as long as their weight doesn't exceed what you can carry. You can also bring one willing creature of your size or smaller who is carrying gear up to its carrying capacity. The creature must be within 5 feet of you when you cast this spell. If you would arrive in a place already occupied by an object or a creature, you and any creature traveling with you each take 4d6 force damage, and the spell fails to teleport you. They do effectively the same thing, except for the fact that Wormhole, the door lasts for a minute, whereas Dimension Door, it's a one-time deal. But as you can see, 5th edition, which I like, which I don't think is needlessly complex. If you compare 5th edition to Wormhole, you have a significantly simpler explanation that still gives you everything you need to be able to use it, because the system itself is not as complex as far as rules are concerned. It doesn't need as many rules to be able to work as 5th edition does. So, I mean, that's just a really good kind of example of how an ability works. And like I said, there's 100 pages of abilities, and there's lots of different ways that you get abilities. And we have only talked about we have only talked about the type. We've only talked about your class thus far, and you're already seeing that there's a lot of customization just in the class. The next thing that you pick is called your descriptor. That is the adjective. Again, how you build a Cypher system character is I'm an adjective noun who verbs. So the adjective, the closest thing to D&D you could call the adjective would be your race. And in certain settings, you can actually use a racial modifier, where if you're in a fantasy setting, your descriptor can be you're an elf. So you're, like, if you were a warrior elf, your sentence that describes your character is I am an elven warrior who verbs. But the descriptors that are in the descriptor chapter are, I'll read you a few: brash, empathic, intelligent, resilient, skeptical, mechanical, hardy, mysterious, cruel, dishonorable, hideous, honorable. It goes on. There are, counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's about 50 descriptors in this chapter. There's tons more if you buy supplements in different settings and stuff like that. Like, descriptors are just crazy. And they not only will give you I don't think any of them give you actual abilities, but they modify your character and allows you, I guess they do give you abilities, because they'll give you skills and other things like that. So anyway, so your descriptor is literally that. It is kind of describing how your character acts in most situations. You know, it's describing their kind of personality. Does it always have to be personality? Again, no, it can be a race where it's describing just how you exist in the world. But it is kind of the how of your character. How does your character be a warrior? What kind of warrior are they? Are they a brash warrior? Are they a risk-taking warrior? Are they a naive warrior? Are they a mystical warrior? Are they a strong-willed warrior? Are they a weird warrior? Are they a virtuous warrior? Are they a vicious warrior? All of these different things, and they help to flavor your character. They help you to really more define it. For me, as much as, yes, mechanically, they're a little closer to kind of race, if you think of the race class background that we've gotten used to with 5th edition and all the other clones of it. To me, this feels like a combination race background kind of thing. Because it gives you both. Background tends to be a little more role-playing focused. Race tends to be a little bit more mechanical focused, but both of them can have role-playing mechanical aspects. And this kind of combines them into one. And it's really, really nice. Again, there's lots of choices here. And that's one of the things that I've mentioned quite a few times, is the idea that good game design gives you choices, bad game design gives you right answers. And the thing that I love the most about the Cypher system is you have 50 choices for descriptors. None of them are going to feel like, well, if I'm going to be a warrior, I need to be a brash warrior. Or, I need to be some sort of aggressive descriptor, or else it's not going to work well with this. If you're a I'm going to say this word wrong. Beneficent. It's a weird word. I'm probably mispronouncing it, and it's probably a really, really easy word. Every so often, my brain will take a word that I've seen 100,000 times, and it will just decide that it's not a real word, and it will look like gibberish to me. So beneficent, beneficent, is what I think it is. And if somebody in the comments can correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Basically, helping others is your calling is the first sentence. So one of the characteristics you get from Beneficent: allies who have spent the last day with you add +1 to their recovery rolls. That is a useful ability for any character. It doesn't need to synergize with the war, because for a warrior, being able to take a recovery roll, that's how you get your points back. I'm not going to go into the whole mechanics of the system, but recovery rolls are a thing. They're kind of your short and long rest kind of built into one, and they're useful because the more recovery rolls you take, the longer it takes for you to take them. Your first one is super, super quick, and then it goes to 10 minutes, and then an hour, and then I think 8 hours. So instead of having a short and a long rest, you just have recovery rolls. And the more recovery rolls you do, the longer it takes. And not everyone has to take a recovery roll at the same time. It's a useful thing. So yeah, generous. A warrior that is a beneficent warrior is going to get a benefit from this, because having more hit points is useful. However, an adept who has this is going to be useful because maybe they're a healing focus. Like they tried to make a cleric, and adept works really well to be a cleric. Fun fact, you can also create a cleric style character using an explorer, and you can create a cleric type character using a speaker as well. Speaker and adept tend to be the easiest to make clerics out of the base class, and then if you want to create a cleric out of a explorer or a warrior, just add the magic flavor to it. You can have a cleric of any flavor you want. It works really well. So yeah, like that one ability works really, really well. Altruistic is the next ability. If you're standing next to a creature that takes damage, you can intercede and take 1 point of that damage yourself, reducing the damage of the creature on 1 point. If you have armor, it does not provide a benefit when you use this ability. Again, not going into all of the mechanics. But, so, Beneficent gives you a bonus to healing your allies, and it also gives you ability to take damage for your allies. So a warrior using Beneficent warrior could be really, really good, in the same way that an adept could be just as good, because maybe the adept can heal themselves, so taking damage for an ally is easier than the ally taking the damage and them having to deal something to them. Like, so many different things. And I'm not going to go through the entirety of that particular background, but there are a ton of things that make each one of these descriptors really help you to create some interesting things. And then the other thing that your descriptor does is it does give you initial link to starting adventure, where it actually so I'm going to read the first one because it makes it easier to understand. From the following list of options, choose how you became involved in the first adventure. 1. Even though you didn't know most of the other PCs beforehand, you invited yourself along on their quest. So, as you can see, it even gives you a reason for why you got involved in the party for a first level character. Do you have to use these? Absolutely not, but they're really, really nice. So, yes, so that's your descriptor. Finally, we've talked about the adjective, we've talked about the noun. Adjective is the descriptor, noun is the type. The verb is what's called your focus. And the best description I can give to you for what a focus is it's effectively kind of like a subclass, but it's a subclass that any type can take. So it is a universal subclass. It is really, really interesting. To give you some examples, all of the foci, which is the plural of focus, all the foci are named in a way that they are a sentence that conveys an action. So, abides in stone, battles robots, bears a halo of fire, controls beasts, howls at the moon, never says die, performs feats of strength, shepherds the community, speaks for the land, throws with deadly accuracy. So again, I am a brash warrior who throws with deadly accuracy. That is your character build. That is how you build your character. And one of the unique things about this is if you really want to just create an interesting character without worrying about mechanics or anything, you can literally get a list of the types, a list of the descriptors, and a list of foci, and just go, okay, I'm going to pick this word, and this word, and put them together, and now I have a character. There will still be some, specifically with your type, you still have to pick your 3 or 4 abilities, but that is the only thing you need to do. You can literally go to a convention and have people just look at 3 lists and go pick a word from each list. Or pick a phrase from each list, effectively, because all the foci most of the foci have multiple words. Pick a phrase from each list. Congratulations, this is your new character. It's a really, really interesting way to build a character. To give you an example what these things do, instead of levels, you have what are called tiers. There's only 6 tiers. Again, not going to go super heavy into mechanics or anything. Again, if you want an in-depth review of this book, comments below, I will probably go into more details how that works. But like, to give you an example, Rides the Lightning. At tier 1, you get 2 abilities for choosing Rides the Lightning as your focus. Those abilities are Shock, which 1 intellect point your hands crackle with electricity. The next time you touch a creature, you inflict 3 points of damage. Alternity, if you wield a weapon for 10 minutes, it crackles with electricity and inflicts 1 additional point of damage per attack. Action for touch, enabler for weapon. So, again, without understanding the entire system, that sounds a little bit weird, but it's effectively, you have electricity, and it does physical damage when you touch people. That's what shock does. Charge, on the other hand, charge. There we go. 1+ intellect points. You can charge an artifact or other device, except a Cypher, so that it can be used once. This costs 1 intellect point plus 1 point per level of the device action. So, Rides the Lightning gives you basically electricity power. So if you want a character that has the ability to control electricity as a specialty, so maybe you are creating you are creating an adept. You're creating a wizard, and you want your wizard to specialize in lightning magic, or maybe, you know, be a storm sorcerer style character. You could take Rides the Lightning, and those abilities are going to give you a specialty in lightning-based things and energy, electricity-based things. So not only can you cause things to get shocked, effectively you have Shocking Grasp there, but you can also charge things with electricity. You can recharge the things. Like, there's lots you can do with just those 2 abilities. And again, the sky's the limit with how you want to deal with that, because between those 2 abilities, that opens up a lot of possibilities just basing it on electricity. As you level up your character, you get access to more abilities and things like that, and the ciphers themselves we'll talk about in a second. That will change how you play your character and that. But that's kind of how all of these foci work, is they are a subclass and they are designed to work with any type. So it's just another way to kind of specialize your type. One of my favorite campaign settings for the Cypher system is called the Strange. And the reason I like it is the Strange is basically about, and I will probably do an entire discovering new dragons on the Strange probably next because I like it so much. But you go to basically alternate realities, and they're all based on fiction of some sort. So you might go to, you know, Wonderland, or you might go to a place that seems very much like the Forgotten Realms or something like that. You know, that's what the whole thing is based on. And when you transition to a new reality, I can't remember what they call it in the Strange right now, sometimes your focus will change as you go. And so in the Strange, you actually collect multiple foci that you can effectively just kind of equip when you want them. So you basically have these power sets that you just attach to yourself every so often. There's rules about when you can and can't do it to make it a little more balanced. But that's my favorite implementation of the Cypher system, is this idea of that your focus is not, you choose it at character creation, then nothing ever changes again. You eventually get multiple foci that you just equip like a suit or something, and it's really cool. So yeah, that is the basics of how you build your character. And the other thing that's unique about the Cypher system is how you roll. Specifically for people like me, game masters. If you're like me and you roll horribly, I roll so bad that when I used to run Dungeons and Dragons in a game store, I had a buddy of mine who I had started playing D&D with before I became a dungeon master. He was actually one of the first people I played D&D with. And then he moved for his work. And then he came back to visit, and he said, "Hey, do you mind if I sit down and play with you guys?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Hey, guys, this is my buddy Bill. He's amazing. He's wonderful. He taught me how to play, the game. He's the dude that got me into this. It's awesome." So we sat down playing, and we're doing it, and like halfway through the game, he goes, "Oh, that's really interesting." And what? He's like, "Oh, well, everyone uses saving throw abilities." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, every one of the players here uses almost exclusively saving throw abilities. None of them make attack rolls." And I realized at that point, my players had realized, because I roll so poorly, they would do significantly better if I was the one that was always rolling. Anytime they rolled, the dice may like them, the dice may not like them. Anytime I roll, the dice just don't like me. And so my players actually chose all their abilities and everything that they did, and they did make attack rolls every so often, because not all of them were like magic users or anything, but they did everything they could to have me rolling most of the time. And I hadn't realized it because I was new and I was still trying to figure out how to run a game. But my buddy just goes, yeah. And I'm like, you assholes. How dare you? But no, that's really, really intelligent, and I'm impressed with all of you. But how dare you? So, the thing that's unique about the Cypher system, GMs don't roll. Players roll everything. And you don't add anything to your D20 roll. Whatever the D20 says, that is what your roll is. There's no math, there's no floating modifiers or anything. Everything is just your D20. Well, that sounds really stupid and really boring. How do you get, how do you get more difficult things? Well, the thing that does change is the difficulty. There are 10 levels of difficulty in the Cypher system. And they're defined as level 1 all the way up to level 10. And the number you have to roll to beat a difficulty level of 1 is it's 3 times whatever the level is. So to beat a task of difficulty 1, you have to roll a d20 and get a 3 or higher. To do 6, you need to roll a d20 and get an 18 or higher. Makes sense, right? That means, well, wait a minute. A d20 can only roll 20. So if you do a 7, a difficulty 7 thing requires you to roll a 21. And you can't do that because you just told me you never add anything to the roll. So does that mean anything above a 21 is impossible? No. All of your abilities that make you better or worse at doing things will affect the difficulty class, not your roll. So you can ease things or you can hinder things. Hinder means the level goes up by 1 or 2 or whatever it is. You can hinder and ease by multiple levels. Ease means it goes down by 1. And there's many different things you can do to ease a roll or to hinder a roll. And I think I know ease is the right word. I'm not sure about hinder. But that's the basic premise of it, is you move the difficulty, but the roll is always the same. And you always kind of put all your eases and hinders in before you make your roll. So the entirety of the Cypher system is built on that bargaining thing that I mentioned when I talked about what I learned in the Power Rangers RPG. Bargaining is a huge part of the Cypher system. It's saying, well, I have this ability and this ability, so those automatically ease it this. And then I have this asset, which should ease it by this much. And I'm in this position, so it should ease it by this much. All those different things can do it. And if you can ever get the difficulty down to 0, you don't have to roll. It is an automatic success. So as you can see, it's a really interesting system. They also have a thing where rolling a 19 on the die gives you a minor benefit. And rolling a 20 on the die gives you a major benefit. I think it's, I can't remember what they're called. They have words for all of this stuff, and it makes it easier to talk about. I think it's called a major intrusion. Intrusions are a thing, again, not going to go into all the mechanics, but basically anytime you roll a 19, you can get extra stuff that goes in your way. Anytime you roll a nat 20, you get even better things that might ease it. It might give you other benefits. So as much as the rolling system sounds really kind of boring and simplified, it's not. It has all the complexity that is necessary for the game to run and nothing more. It doesn't need floating modifiers because the system can work well without it. Does that mean any system that uses floating modifiers is broken and overly complex? No. However, it does show that the idea of floating modifiers are not necessary for a game to work. And this is an example of a game that doesn't use any floating modifiers. You never modify your d20 roll at all. And before you make the roll, the number you have to hit is already settled. It also means for a game master for Cypher, coming up with rulings on the fly is really easy compared to something like, especially if you start looking into something like Pathfinder, or if you really want to go into the extreme GURPS. You have to know, like, well, I want to climb this wall and it's currently raining. In something like, especially in GURPS is going to have a rule. about how rain affects rolls, and a rule for climbing, and a rule for which climbing gear that you use, and a rule for you know, how many limbs you have, and all this stuff. Like, that's going to get really complex. Pathfinder 3rd edition has rules for climbing, and it has other things that will affect how easy or difficult climbing is. You have to use a specific skill to climb, things like that. D&D 5th edition, it's an athletics check to climb, and the DC is variable. In this, someone says, well, this is what I want to do. You can basically just go, that's a good idea. They have a descriptor for every level. So a difficulty 0 task is called routine. Difficulty 1 is simple. Simple. Then it goes standard, demanding, difficult, challenging, intimidating, formidable, heroic, immortal, impossible. So somebody describes to you something, you go, well, that sounds challenging. So we're going to start it. The base task is difficulty 5. Now, do you have any character abilities or enablers that allow you, that would affect this particular difficulty? Well, I have a climbing a specialty or a skill or something from my focus that allows me to ease any climbing-based skill by 2 levels. Okay, well now, again, the task itself is a difficulty 5 task, but you're going to roll against a difficulty 3 because you've eased it to. However, it's raining right now, and that makes the thing slippery, so I'm going to hinder the task by 1 level. So it's now a difficulty 4 task, which means you need to roll a 12 or higher on your D20. Go ahead and roll. Simple, easy, and it doesn't take a huge understanding of the rules. Like, again, I have not gone through the entire book with you guys. I have just explained the very basics of the rules, and most of you should understand and be able to follow that conversation without too much problem. Obviously, I haven't talked about everything, but for the most part, it makes sense. So yeah, as far as, and this is something that I know a lot of GMs like me struggle with, you know, creating new monsters or coming up with combat encounters and things like that. They do have some rules about, you know, how to create combat encounters and stuff like that. They're not extensive because the way that creatures works is creatures have a level. Like if it's a level 4 creature, that means to hit the creature, you have to roll above a 12. And the damage that you do, light weapons do 2 points of damage, medium weapons do 4 points, heavy weapons do 6 points of damage. There's no complex rolling, there's no complex, you know, rules about how this is going to work. You heard with the shock thing, it told you exactly how many points of damage the shock thing did. It's not going to be incredibly difficult. The one thing that affects this is armor is effectively subtracted from damage. So if you do 4 points of damage with a medium weapon and they have an armor of 2, they take 2 points of damage. Really simple. If the creature attacks, again, players always roll. So the players will roll a defense. And their defense, if it's a level 4 creature, to defend against it, they need to roll a 12. So everything is really simple. If they wander into a section, you know, they're in a bar and they just start a bar fight, and you're like, crap, I don't have any monster stat blocks for all of the bystanders in here that are pissed at these guys that started the bar fight. I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, I'm just going to say it's a bar. It's a bunch of level 2 and level 3 characters. They're not superheroes or anything. And we've got, you know, there's 7 of them in here. Congratulations. You've just done everything. You have no reason to worry. Initiative is a speed-based roll, so again, it's just a D20. The speed-based thing, again, I'm not going to go into the full rule set because it gets a little bit more complicated than I want to get in this video, but it's super easy and simple to just make up stack blocks on the spot. Now, the actual monster blocks that they have here are more complicated than just it's a level this monster. They will have enablers. Enablers are effectively things that allow you to do things. They enable you. So maybe you have an enabler that means that when you do damage, you ignore 1 point of armor or something. Those are the kind of things that are enablers. They're activated or they change how you work. A stat block for a monster is going to have a number of enablers and a number of different things that allow them to ease certain attacks or maybe to hinder certain things. And like, so the stat blocks are not just, oh, it's a level this creature. No, they can get very complex. And when you are building custom monsters for your players, again, it's as simple as, well, what does this creature do well? What does this creature do poorly? I'll add eases and hindrances in there, maybe add an enabler or two, and you've got a monster. They're some of the easiest monsters to design I have seen, and they're really, really nice for that. But it also means if you're just put into a situation where you weren't expecting them to pick a fight with something, you just go, okay, how deadly do I think this thing is? You know, do I think these people are absolutely screwed by it? Or do I think these are relatively, you know, just minor annoyances that are going to be there to annoy them? And you do it like that. It's such a simple, easy system to just run with and go. So yeah. Overall, and I realize this is an hour-long video, but it makes sense. We're discovering new dragons. Of course it's going to take a little while. The Cypher system in itself, the core Cypher system book, which I will have a link in the description to the Monty Cook website, is a fantastic setting neutral system that not only can you use to add in basically you can use to simulate basically any kind of campaign that you want. It is designed to do everything from science fiction to fantasy to horror to whatever you want. You can do a Vampire the Masquerade political intrigue style campaign, and it works really well with the Cypher system. So not only is it very, very open, but since we've had all this drama with the OGL and lots of speculation, a lot of people talking about things that aren't possible, last summer, Monty Cook Games, I'm going to look it up before I call it the wrong, wrong thing. Character gameplay, your setting, Cypher system rulebook. Do they not have open? Sorry, folks. If I was more prepared for this, like a real YouTuber, maybe I'd be doing it. Anyway, so there we go. Cypher system open license. That's what they call it. So the Cypher system has their own OGL. It's called the Cypher System Open License, or the CSOL, which is a hilarious, hilarious acronym. To me, I don't know if you guys think it's funny, but SOL is sorry out of luck. And so CSOL I just find absolutely hilarious. July 27th, 2022 is when they released the Cypher System Open License. The Cypher System Open License looks very similar to the OGL 1.1, but it's a little bit less restrictive than even that is. So it is an open game license for the Cypher System. The Cypher System has an SRD, a Systems Reference Document, which is 100% free. And the interesting thing about the Cypher System Systems Reference Document is everything in, or I think almost everything in the core rulebook, aside from a few minor things, almost every single rule, almost every single ability is in the Systems Reference Document. In addition, there are supplements to the Cypher system. There's quite a few different books that you can buy. They also, the new character options show up in the Systems Reference Document absolutely free. I will have a link to the Cypher System Open License page, and where you can get the SRD and stuff. It is 100% free, and it also means if you wanted to create your own Cypher System game, like Numenera, like The Strange, like what are some of the other ones? I have to look real quick because they're The settings that I have: Gods of the Fall, Predation, Stars Are Fire, Unmasked. All of these are Cypher system settings. If you wanted to create your very own Cypher system campaign setting and you wanted to sell it, there are rules, just like the OGL, but it's 100% possible. And again, from my reading of the license itself, it looks almost identical to the OGL, but it has a few less caveats on it. And it's really, really nice. If you compare it to the 5th edition SRD, which is basically the starter set of D&D, where they give you the rules of the system, they give you each one of the classes in the player's handbook and one subclass each. That's what the 5th edition SRD has, and it's a good SRD. I like that exists. It is a fantastic thing. This puts that to shame. Literally the entire core book plus some extra stuff is in there. Now, it is a Word document. It looks like ass. And I mentioned in the Cypher System core book, it is generalized so that you can apply it to a lot of different settings. If the Cypher System core book is generalized, then the Cypher System SRD is anonymous. There is no flavor. There is very little context. It is designed to be a stepping stone for you to create your own system. All the mechanics are there, but you are going to need to add a little bit of your own flavor and description. To give you an example, since I have it. Hold, please. See, again, if I'd planned this more than 10 minutes before I started recording, I might have been prepared for all this. But who plans things anymore? I mean, really. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can't find the... oh, and I should probably talk about ciphers before we're done with this. I'm going to see if I can just find a type. I get that. Oh my lord. The one thing I like about the PDF is it has bookmarks. Okay, so warriors. So again, like for some of the abilities, they have things like arc spray or improved success, where they have names and they have kind of a very brief one-sentence description of what it's intended to be. But compared to what they even have in the Cypher System rulebook, it is very, very open-ended. And again, it's a Word document, so your mileage may vary. I'm probably going to do my best to convert it into a PDF, and if I somehow get the ability to add bookmarks by like getting the actual Adobe Acrobat, I will do that. But so yeah, this entire thing, it is it's open source effectively. You want to run a Cypher System game, create your brand new setting, create an entirely new game using the basis of the Cypher System. You can. Again, this is really new. July 27th, 2022. This is brand spanking new. Up until this point, I believe you had to license it from them. But before all of the drama and everything started happening with the OGL, Cypher had decided, probably at least a year or so, because stuff like this takes a while to get through legal and everything. Monty Cook decided that they wanted people to be able to create cool stuff for their system, and I think that's amazing and it's wonderful. And it also means if you want to get into the Cypher System, you do not need to pay a dime. All the stuff in the SRD is compatible with any Cypher System game. You can build entire characters using just the SRD. It's wonderful. It's amazing. I did want to mention the thing that the Cypher System is built around is what are called ciphers. Ciphers are these little one-time use devices or abilities. The whole thing about the Cypher System, the reason that the classes only go up to level 6, technically, the reason that, while yes, there are 100 pages of ability, you're probably not going to get more than maybe a dozen or so for any single character, is because ciphers, you are meant to be constantly finding these one-time use abilities and then using them. You actually have a limited number of ciphers you can hold based on your type. So when you find a new cipher, you'll look at, oh man, I can only hold 3 ciphers, and I found a 4th one here. Do I want to throw one of these away? Do I want to use it immediately? Thank you, phone. it hyper encourages you to just be using these effectively randomly generated abilities. And that's what the ciphers are supposed to be. There's a bunch of tables that you roll on, and for GMs that let you just kind of dole out these ciphers that do different things, and the players themselves can choose who gets each cipher. And so it adds such an interesting randomness, kind of a controlled randomness to the game. So yeah. So final thoughts, to use something that I really like to use. The Cypher system in and of itself is a really, really solid genre neutral system, setting neutral system. You can make any kind of character you want in it. Everything is designed to be very, very open. The flavor system allows you to create your own variations on classes without difficulty at all. They have an entire section that not only gives you ideas on how to modify the system so that it works in like a high fantasy setting, but here's a one of the tables they have in the fantasy section, since we are discovering new dragons. Suggested types for a fantasy game. If you want to be a warrior, choose a character type warrior. Knight, also a warrior. Ranger is an explorer. Barbarian is an explorer flavored with combat. Thief is an explorer flavored with stealth. Cleric, speaker flavored with magic. Druid, explorer flavored with magic. Warrior mage, warrior flavored with magic. Bard, speaker. It gives you a bunch of character classes you would normally see in a fantasy game, and it tells you these are the types and this is how you flavor them. But it doesn't give you, this is what you have to do. It says, flavor them with combat. Well, which combat abilities? What make the most sense to you? What do you think would work for a barbarian? What kind of barbarian do you want to be? The same thing. And they also add in for the fantasy, they add species descriptors. Dwarf, elf, half-giant, hellborn. So that's where races could come in. If you really do want to have a race, they have them right here. So the system itself, again, is designed to be used to make the stories that you want to make. And it's not going to be difficult. Creating your own setting for D&D can be unbelievably difficult. Creating your own setting for this, they give you all the building blocks you need in the core book. To do it in D&D, you probably want to get the Dungeon Master's Guide. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is really, really useful for that as well. And you need the Player's Handbook for it too. Like, you need a lot of books to do it. Here you get them all in one book. The system itself, I love. It runs pretty quickly once you get used to the kind of bargaining aspect that is inherent in it. And it's great for new players. There's enough structure in it that a new player is not going to feel choice paralysis. There's enough openness to it and enough interpretation built into it that new players are going to be able to learn how to not just look at stat blocks and mechanics, but really figure out what story they want to tell. And for seasoned players like myself, there's enough crunch here that you can really go crazy creating interesting, unique characters. There's not so much crunch that you're going to need to spend a year studying it before you can actually create a decent character. Creating a quote-unquote broken or a useless character is nearly impossible in this. Creating a broken character would be difficult because, again, so much is based on kind of that bargaining system. That even if you did create a quote-unquote broken character, you would still have to bargain it effectively. So your bargaining skills are going to be a lot more game-breaking than your ability to build a character. It's not to say you can't create really super powerful characters, but this is not a system designed for min-maxers. It's designed for people that just want to play very specific kinds of characters. If you want to play a character that you haven't been able to find in another setting, you can play it in this one. And you'll have a lot of fun doing it. Anyway, that is all for me. As always, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, turn notifications on. All those things are just super, super important. In the comments down below, I've been asking for a bunch of different things, but in the comments down below, if you made it to the end of this, let me know if you were to pick up the Cypher setting today, what genre would you want to play? Do you want to play a fantasy game? Do you want to do a more modern or a science fiction? Do you want to do a superhero, a post-apocalyptics? Let me know what genre you're going to flavor first with your first Cypher System character or your first Cypher System game. Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.